Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Friday to everybody. Thank you for joining us as you increasingly have been doing in greater and greater numbers every week on Behind the Numbers, a nerdy show from two guys who like polling that is somehow taking off, and we love it. And thank you all for being here. Somebody said it's 2 a.m. here. You really should be sleeping. Yeah, you probably should, but you're with us, and thank you for that. Folks, we have a lot to cover this week. Obviously, the biggest of big pictures right now is that we are now in a war of Donald Trump's choosing. It is a war without a strategy. It is a war without a lot of clear objectives. It is a war seemingly somehow before they planned this, when they took every expert on the Middle East who's ever lived and got rid of them. It's going to go great.
Yeah. I just want to say off the top, I think that those things are all true. And this could be incredibly consequential down the line if it drags on. Like, we're looking at a war that costs $1 billion a day. We're already up to probably $6 billion by now. And it really could become a situation where, we could be in this war for 100 days.
Right.
And it could, the costs could skyrocket. Casualties could keep going up. If the Straits of Hormuz stay closed, that's going to have massive impacts on the global economy. And we're already seeing things like gas prices spiking. That's been something that Trump's touting as a major win. Is
gas is practically free everywhere,
right? And we've seen pretty big spikes in gas prices across the country.
Jet fuel has tripled overnight.
Right, so that's going to be your travel costs.
Good luck in the summer vacation season, kids.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, there are really no good outcomes here. And in the polling, it is just devastating for Trump. It was already sort of unpopular. So 60% of Americans, 59% of Americans oppose the military action in Iran. And I think there's a few reasons for this. Number one is the administration went in without really preparing the American people for a war.
Correct.
Think back to the Bush era and the invasion of Iraq. That was, 2.5 years of preparation for the invasion of Iraq?
I would say we spent probably 18 months doing two things. One, building a public case in the U.S. And folks, we can argue about the case all day long.
Sure.
But we did it. And two, we built an international set of alliances that made our participation there more viable and more acceptable to the American people. And in my era, with George H.W. Bush, we spent about 6 months doing the same thing. We had a slightly faster clock we had to race in terms of Saddam burning Kuwait to the ground. So we had a slightly faster tick on that. But that also, there was a publicly made case about why we needed to go there and intervene.
Right. And it just surprises me, all these administration officials can't give a straight answer on why we're doing it. I think they probably understand that it's unpopular. And I don't pretend to know how or why it happened. But the thing is that when you don't sell the conflict, people just come to their own conclusions about it, which are numerous. And, the other thing is, the longer it drags on, it was already unpopular, right? The longer we go, the more unpopular it's going to get, the more consequential it is at home. I just don't see, you can't sell an objective after the fact, right? Like, we've already killed Khomeini. And, there are good arguments for killing Khomeini, right?
Oh, yeah. Listen,
we could have said,
I'd be happy to see that guy at room temperature every day.
Sure. And the administration could have made the argument that, Iran is weak right now. Russia is busy in Ukraine. They're not going to support them. Right. We can go in and we can strike Khomeini, and that'll be the end of it. Of course, they knew what the consequences would be, which is the bombing of the Gulf countries. Yep. They were well aware of that. That's pretty clear. I just do not imagine any scenario where this is a good outcome. I mean, there's no path forward that makes sense.
Right. We have a slide that has the sort of summary of all the polling that's out there on the war so far. Do we have that slide?
I don't know if we got that slide in, but we have some more polling. We'll just go through it.
Let's put it this way, folks. Right now, I'm going to say it, oh, there we go.
Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah. So net disapproval across the board, except for this Fox News Beacon research poll, which has people 50-50 against it. This is really unlike past conflicts that we've had, where I think the approval for the invasion of Iraq was somewhere in the 70s.
Yeah.
You start underwater with anything, it stays underwater.
So there's, you know what, that is an old rule of political thumb, that it costs you twice as much in terms of effort to buy a negative point back to the positive direction than it does to lose it.
Right.
So look,
but if you're the administration, how do you do it? How do you come back from this? What do you do to mitigate
the only
the
easy
damage?
day was yesterday,
right?
This polling,
and there's going to be an increasing amount of pressure on Trump to cut this out. It'll be coming from Japan. It'll be coming from India, because
it's going to come from the Gulf states, Kuwait, Qatar, Abu Dhabi. And the Saudis. Those people love one thing more than anything else in the universe, and that is making money.
Yeah. And this has major ramifications for the American economy. America is relatively energy independent, so the cost of oil is not the big crisis here.
Right.
It's the fact that the Gulf states make other countries buy oil with the American dollar.
Correct.
And if the Gulf states are not selling oil, the value of the dollar plummets.
Ding, ding, ding.
That would become a major crisis. I mean, the value of the dollar is underpinned by these GCC countries. And
100%.
if the oil infrastructure, which is being struck, continues to be struck, and that stuff does not come back tomorrow, you cannot rebuild a refinery or a oil connection in one day.
Building a refinery, folks, is a decade-long process.
It's complicated.
And that's a fast build, by the way.
Right.
There's a refinery being built in Louisiana that's been under construction since 1999, and it's not done yet.
Right. I mean, I do not see a way to pivot away from the consequences of this. Even if he decides tomorrow to hang Israel out to dry and say we're out, the consequences are still going to manifest.
Here's my worry, Andrew, and I think look, I'm a huge believer in air power, but air power does not do regime change well.
No,
if at all.
Libya is a good example.
Right, Libya QED. Yeah, we got rid of Saddam or Gaddafi, but how'd that work out after?
No, there's an open slave market there now, so
yeah, great.
It's really not a good situation.
I mean, so think about this: what happens when the IGRC and the Basij and the Quds and the Artef forces all basically break up into local franchise terrorist groups?
Well, you get sort of the balkanization of Iran and the same situation we have with the Houthis.
Yeah,
we have to steer away from the coast of Yemen because the Houthis can come out of the hills and shoot missiles at ships.
Right, and by the way, folks, these missiles and drones they're shooting, we're spending. And by the way, somebody in the chat was correct. I spoke to a person who is the most knowledgeable defense. This is a very nerdy rabbit hole to go into. I've known this person since the 80s, late 80s. He's a little older than, actually, he's 10 or 15 years older than me now. He's up there. He was in defense procurement and acquisition for 50 years. 50. His whole adult life. Understands this shit better than any human I know. Has been an executive at major defense firms. He said to me, he goes, I did the math, Rick. And the math is that we're not spending $1 billion a day. If you calculate out both the known expenditures of munitions and the known time we've been in the air running the ships and the aircraft, we're spending $2 billion. I'm sorry, we're spending $500 million an hour. I mean, this is and his other point to me, and I wrote about this the other day. We're Trump going out and saying we've got plenty of weapons left is a sign that we don't have plenty of weapons left, folks. There's a thing in the military where when you're status green on ammo, you've got 90% or more of the ammo you need. When you're status yellow, you've got 80% or more. When you're status red, you're under 50%, and your mission starts to get compromised. his argument to me was, we're between yellow and red right now. If you go status black, that means that you're out. The bunker is empty. There ain't no more missiles to shoot.
Yeah. What happens when we run out of interceptors? It's chaos.
Well, and by the way, they hit 2 of our THAAD batteries based on Russian intelligence in the last 24 hours. Folks, THAAD, THAAD, you can look it up. They're about $1.2 billion a piece, not including the missiles that are on the systems. And those were covering a lot of our shorter range stuff that the Patriots weren't getting.
So yeah, I mean, it's a really, and
we're shooting $4 million Patriot PAC-3 missiles to shoot on a $20,000 drone the size of a fucking Nissan Altima.
Right. And just to get back to the polling for a second, there's sort of this principle in American politics that voters don't care about foreign policy.
Until they do.
They don't vote on foreign policy. That's almost never their first issue.
Right.
But we're talking about affordability. That's really the big watchword this year.
Sure.
And we're spending billions and billions and billions of dollars every day on this war.
Yep.
And I think at home, people are saying, why are we doing this? What's the reason? They haven't been given a good reason, a believable reason. And they're seeing their own economic prospects sort of dwindle.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll talk about the jobs numbers in a second. I do not see, I think because this foreign policy decision will have such massive ramifications for the economy, people will be voting. Maybe they won't say I'm voting against Republicans because of the Iran war, but they'll say I'm hurting economically, financially, and the Iran war will be the cause of that pain in part.
I think that's Andrew. I think that's exactly on point. I think it's exactly on point. They're going to connect.
I mean, we saw it with tariffs, right? Like, people realized that tariffs were driving up prices. They knew tariffs were driving up prices, and maybe tariffs weren't their number one issue. It was the economy, but they knew that the economy was suffering because of tariffs. They do know clearly that this is essentially flushing money down the toilet.
Yep. Brent crude just passed 90.
Well, we're going to hit 100. And that hitting 100 on Brent crude is going to be,
that's $5 a gallon gas at the pump, folks.
I do not see it's terrible for the president.
That's my back of the envelope math is that $100 Brent crude is going to be $5 a gallon. It's $3.33 right now, national average, up 25 cents in the last 5 days. So, and buying the Russian crude oil that the White House is allowing now doesn't reduce your gas prices at the pump, people.
No, and it also funds Russia's war machine,
which is currently providing intelligence to Iran.
Yeah, so it's all going great.
It's going great.
I think we have some more polling on this. Let's take a look here. What do we have? So this is necessary approval, and I feel like this conversation has sort of come out of the. It's sort of dwindled a little bit. People aren't necessarily talking about approval so much as since the War Powers vote came and went. We're in it now. Approval is sort of not necessarily irrelevant, but we're there.
Yeah.
This is congressional approval prior to the strike. And this is, if do they need approval?
Right.
Half of the country said yes. More than 79% of Democrats said yes. 34% of Republicans said yes. But now look at these numbers. Neither preferable nor necessary. Only 14% of people say it's neither preferable.
Right. That's the Trump
necessary.
Position.
Right.
Is 14%. The Trump position.
It's tough. So this is approval by party ID. You can see where it's been
Chart
moving.
Makes my brain hurt.
Yeah, this is a tough one to read. But if you look at those arrows, that shows you. So we've gone from, look at this first line, -9, which is the opposition to the strikes. We've gone down to -14.
Yep.
So that's a pretty big progression over 5 days. I think this is only 4 days covering 4 days of the war.
Yeah, this is out of the field on the second. So
it's, okay. Not covering the whole war. but that is a pretty major drop in approval for this conflict over just a few days. And a principle of polling is that these numbers do not move quickly unless something major is happening. You can see Democrats are strongly opposed to this. Independents are not as opposed, but they are getting more opposed. Republicans are getting in line.
Of course they are.
Now, we're still under 90%, which is bad news for Trump. If Republicans on any issue are under 90% approval, not really great for the president. But, Republicans, I think this is to be expected that Republicans will get in line for this war for a period of time.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So this is 56% of people expect Iran strikes to grow into long-term conflict. I think people who are saying that, yes, it will grow into a long-term conflict are paying attention because that's what Pete Hegseth says. That's what the president says. That's what Marco Rubio says. They say they're going to step this up. It's going to get more and more chaotic. The expectation of a forever war, I think, is pretty devastating for Republican electoral prospects. And I don't want to leave the Democrats out here because there has been a certain hesitation to criticize this war and to criticize the forever war. Essentially, we're getting into one. And I think Democrats need to drop that hesitation entirely. This would be a winning issue for a lot of candidates if they were opposed to this conflict. And it's not because we're pinkos or communists or we love the Ayatollah. It's because we're throwing good money after bad. And
we're going to end up leaving Iran in a much more dangerous posture than we found it.
Right.
Look, I'm second to nobody in being an OG neocon.
Right.
Folks, I work for Dick fucking Cheney. Okay. I am from the wellspring of the neocon universe.
Yeah.
Now I have learned a lot of lessons in my life over time, but I will tell you something. The Republican framing of you're either with Trump or you're with the Ayatollahs, if Democrats don't break out of that rapidly, the successors to guys like me, the things I used to be able to do to frame those arguments during two wars, will happen to the Democrats. They need to be bold about this and say, Donald Trump this is built out of corruption. They need to link it back to Epstein. They need to link it back to Jared and Witkoff wanting to cut deals. And the truth of the matter is, the Iranians are going to go to Witkoff and they're going to go to Kushner through somebody in Qatar or somebody in Abu Dhabi or somebody in Saudi, and they're going to say, hey, listen, man, so we'll give you somebody who's not pro-American, but they're not going to be crazy, and we won't enrich for 5 years. And by the way, we might invest in, maybe some stuff for the Trump family, and they'll take the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump took a deal. Now he is increasingly insane based on his Truth Social posts.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's got a Quato growing out of his neck.
Yeah, he's got some sort of serious issue. They put forward all these different reasonings. Some I don't buy, some I think are maybe more believable. The revenge plot, I think, is sort of an empty.
Yeah.
They tried to assassinate you, so I'm going to get him first. Whatever, that's meaningless.
Yeah. Horseshit.
I think this has a lot to do with a trend we see in unpopular presidents.
Yeah.
And
what are they going to do? Shoot him in the ear?
Right. Unpopular presidents start wars because they expect to rally around the flag effect. We don't have it. It's just not there. So this is partisan satisfaction with U.S. global position. Republicans, of course, have spiked in the last year because they're delusional. Independents are pretty low, steady. Democrats obviously have taken a massive fall. I think, internationally, this makes us look really bad. We don't. In the past, we haven't strong-armed allies into joining us into wars. They have volunteered themselves to join us.
Yep.
We can't force them in. And if we try to force them in, it's going to open a crack in NATO that
Yep.
I don't see Trump having the ability to repair or the desire to repair.
Why do you think Macron this week is out there basically saying, I'm going to expand France's nuclear deterrent capacity?
Right. I mean, what this does, I think, internationally is make China look more and more like an attractive option to be your friend and ally.
Yeah.
And it, of course, exposes Taiwan to invasion and attack. I think it's pretty evident that we probably could not win a war against China in the first island chain, considering that we are getting bombed by Iran and we have everything on the table right there.
And China's drone technology is orders of magnitude better than Iran's.
Yes.
And the other part of this that people aren't fully grasping, and that my friend was talking to me about, he said they have had to pull everything out of PACOM into CENTCOM. They out of the Pacific region, guys, they've taken all these, interceptor missiles and all these other assets out of the region.
Right.
And China is looking at Taiwan like a juicy steak right now.
And not to mention North Korea is probably thinking now might be a good time to invade
to get
South.
zesty.
And because we are pulling military assets away from these places that we have sworn to protect.
Mark my words, people. If Taiwan and South Korea want to build nuclear weapons, they have more than the technological infrastructure to do it. They could do it now.
Right.
And I'm going to predict they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because what else deters people?
And this, creates a very unstable world. I see somebody in the comments asking, how are they ever going to take over Cuba?
Oh.
Cuba, we could knock Cuba over in a couple of hours. I mean, it's sort of like Venezuela.
The question is, what happens when we take Cuba? 1 million fucking people cross the 89 miles to get to American shores, and everything that floats in Cuba, including couch cushions, will be in the water heading to America. 1 million people will be here in a week. I promise you that.
Yeah, I mean, and the sort of military adventurism that we've been going through with Trump, he doesn't want to stop, but at the same time, he has to wrap this one first.
Yeah.
Or else it's sort of just all unravels and we have pure chaos everywhere.
Yay.
Yeah, it's great.
So listen, I know we dug in on the war here, folks, but there's also great economic polling.
Yeah, it's really, really looking heartening for the president. So
golden age, baby. It's a golden age.
Non-farm jobs numbers down 92,000 in February. And it was expected to be 55, right?
Yep.
Plus 55. The economy is going down the circling the drain at this point. And I don't even think this is, I mean, remember, the war's only been going on for 6 days.
Yeah.
This is pre-war economic news.
Yeah. And pre-energy spike.
Pre-energy spike. I mean, there's no way to sell this as a good economy.
No.
Republicans who were going to rely on this as their main campaign pillar can no longer do so. And the president will say it's nothing. It's Biden. He'll blame the previous administration for all this, and it's not going to work.
I don't think it cuts. I don't think it works.
And we looked at polling a few months ago that showed that Americans aren't buying that story anymore. Just that Dow Jones is down 247,000, and it's taken a 900 point dip today. I think that's pretty catastrophic.
It is at it's down as of this moment. Hold on, let me get the screen up. Down 700 right now.
Ooh. Yeah, that's pretty bad. And this is a trend, right? Like Trump has these things that he points to as his, we're doing great. It's the golden age, all that stuff. He said it during his State of the Union, gas prices, the stock market. As those things start to unwind, he has less and less to point to as accomplishments. He'll probably start talking more about his drapes and, what they're doing at the White House. He just has nothing good to point to at this point as a win. I mean, and this is especially true among the base and the younger MAGA crowd and the younger America First crowd. They're really, really disenchanted with the Iran war, the state of the economy, what's going on with
all of it,
deportations. I unfortunately was watching a little Nick Fuentes because I do for educational purposes.
Good Lord. I'm so sorry.
He's a nightmare, of course, but he represents a lot of these.
Those 18 to 30, those 18 to 30
men on the right, and he's furious. He's saying, vote Democrat. They're upset that Trump broke all these campaign promises. Now, surprise, surprise, Trump doesn't tell the truth about anything. And if you thought he was telling the truth about any of this stuff, you're a sucker. He's lost so much of what is foundational about MAGA. He's broken up his own coalition.
That's right.
It's just a disaster on every front for him. If he wanted a third term, I don't think he could get one. I don't think he could win another election. I mean, and
that's a fascinating point, Andrew, and I had not walked through that.
Unless he, of course, cheated.
But that's a fascinating point. That might save us in some weird way, that he will realize that his numbers are so abysmal that he doesn't deliver the juice anymore for even his own base.
And he doesn't want to go through 2020 again because losing was it shattered Trump in ways that
I loved 2020 so much. I loved it so much. I would eat it up with a spoon every day. That was so fun to go after him every second of the day, to pound the crap out of him, and to help beat him by beating his own mental infirmities. And by the way,
it broke him. It 2020 broke his brain.
Yep.
And he's been cuckoo ever since. I mean, he was crazy before.
My favorite brain breaking moment in 2020 was we got Brad Parscale fired in the first part of the campaign, which was hilarious. But at the end of the campaign, we were doing things like the Covita ad where Donald Trump had to the tune of "Don't Cry for Me," Argentina, and we messed with him because he could be messed with. And I think he's entering a phase of that again. Now, somebody in the chat has asked, Frederick has asked, is there a lot of polling about Trump's mental state? Andrew, have you seen
there is some polling. I think we covered some last week. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but
we'll come back to you guys on that. I think it's a fascinating. It'd be a good dive.
I can tell you that Americans are less and less sure that he has the mental and physical wherewithal to be president. There's been a pretty good amount of polling on that, and
we'll do a dive into that.
If it wasn't obvious by his speech and demeanor, he's going nuts. And it's
slowly but surely.
It's really scary in a lot of ways that this guy has the power that he has, and he can go to war with whomever he wishes, and there won't be pushback from Congress in a significant way, and it's terrifying.
I got to tell you, Andrew, I am convinced that one of the things from 2016 that we saw in polling over and over again in 2016 was this idea that Trump always had a plan, that he was this mastermind, negotiator, strategist, businessman, that he always had three-dimensional chess, 47-dimensional quantum chess being played out. I don't think people see that anymore when he's out there slurring and changing the topic as, oh, look, we're serious war in Iran, American troops are dying. Oh, look at my pretty curtains.
He's continued to say things like, people die in war. And that's just unacceptable from a president for most Americans.
It's grotesque. It's grotesque.
So somebody's asking in the chat, what does 1 in 4 Americans are opposed to the strike mean? What it means is 1 in 4. I think they got it wrong because
1 in 4 Americans favor it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah.
And it's a disaster. He is, and what's wild about this to me is he saw Venezuela as this big win.
Sure.
It was in and out. It was relatively bloodless. We did it in one night and it was over. Not the case with Iran. Not going to be the case with Iran at all. And it just seems like he stepped on a rake. I mean, this was incredibly rash for the president to do this. And the position of somebody like Lindsey Graham, for example, which is this sort of like bloodthirsty, we have to destroy Iran in this holy war.
Right.
It's insane. That's insane. And nobody is on board with it.
Nobody.
No, there are.
I mean, and again, I want to go back to this. Wars never pull better with time.
No.
I mean, I one of my many billion little minion tasks during Desert Storm, that aside from all my other minion tasks, I wrote a thing every couple of days called the recon about polling, like where we are. It's not because we were going to change our policy, but it was important that we be able to go to Congress and say, here's what we know. Here's what the American people think about this. Here's perspective for you as you pass supplementals and all this other stuff. But right now, what we know is that this war, and I think we talked about this last week, I'm not sure, or maybe I said on some other podcast, because I'm only on 47 of them. At the end of the Vietnam War in 1973, when the choppers were on the roof of the embassy, 29% of Americans still supported the war. The most grinding, unpopular, horrifying example of American military hubris and mistakes by far.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and we could honestly get to that level. I mean, I know casualties are low right now, thank God.
Yeah.
But this is not over, and if there's a ground invasion, it is going to be a disaster.
And on our poor friends, the Kurds, whom I love dearly, we betrayed them in 1992. We betrayed them in 2011. We betrayed them. We betrayed them in 2007. We betrayed them in 2011. We're going to betray them again, and they're going to go and fight bravely. They're some of the bravest fighters in the world, and they're going to die by the tens and hundreds of thousands again in this effort. And it is once again going to poison, people against us in this region. And,
I mean, these are the conditions that made ISIS, for people to remember.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the exact kind of scenario that we had that created ISIS. I mean,
and Al Qaeda in Iraq.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a disaster.
When we took out Saddam, who, by the way, folks, Saddam was a secular dictatorship. Okay, this was always a misread by a lot of Americans. Like, Saddam is a radical Muslim. He wasn't Muslim at all, hardly.
No, he read
barely
Playboy magazines and
right. But when we de-Baathified Iraq, got rid of all the civil government, all the military leadership, what happened to those people? They didn't quit. They just said, "Fuck it, I'm going to rebrand. Now I'm Al Qaeda in Iraq. Now I'm and you're going to see, if you defeated every mullah in Iran, there are 2 million people involved in the security services in Artesh, Quds, IGRC, Basij, and they're just going to rebrand.
Yeah. If
Isfahan Islamic State Commandant now instead of, whatever.
And I really do not foresee a scenario in which we can pull out of this quickly and easily, and suddenly this is out of the conversation. Trump loves it when he can have a news cycle under his 100% control. Yep. He decides when it starts, when it ends, and when we stop talking about it. That is not what we have here. We do not have. So somebody's asking what happens if they dump arms in Iran and cause a civil war. You don't need to dump arms in Iran. Iran has a local manufacturing industry to create arms.
Iran's got a domestic weapons production infrastructure that is pretty singular, actually.
How many people live in Syria? I think it's 10, 20 million people.
10 or 11, I thought.
10 or 11 million people. 90 million people live in Iran. And it's also a mountain fortress. I think the only person who's ever invaded from the West was Alexander the Great, if I'm not mistaken, who's ever successfully
and at that point, he was getting pretty strained out.
Yeah. Obviously, from the East is a different story, but that's not what we're doing. We're going to invade from the...
And by the way, if they start to retreat into the eastern part of the country, the border with Afghanistan, that'll be good. Folks, Herat, right there on the east or west side of Afghanistan, east side of Iran, that did not work out well for us for the last couple of years.
I don't remember anything about that. But this does go back to Abbey Gate in some ways.
Sure.
Abbey Gate was this disaster for Biden.
Yep.
He pulled out, which I think was overall a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, we were
Net,
net
the right
we
thing to
were
do.
sending good money after bad, which is, you know, a mistake in many ways.
We were bleeding slowly.
Trump thought that he could win in the Middle East and get it done quickly.
Yep.
That is never the case. We will have another Abbey-gate moment where we have to pull out and it's a bloody disaster.
And it's probably going to be out of Al Udeid in Qatar, or it's going to be out of you know. Listen, my biggest fear. People don't understand how many Americans live in the Middle East.
A lot.
About 350,000 Americans live
in the Gulf states.
Yeah. There's about 50,000 Americans around the Dhahran area in Saudi Arabia at Aramco.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you got?
I mean, the administration has no plan to get them out.
There is an American town in Saudi Arabia outside of Dhahran. It's an American town. Saudi Aramco is a little American city. It's got a Burger King. It's got a Kroger. It's an American city of people who work in the Saudi oil industry.
And I don't want to make it seem like Iran can really beat us in a war. That's not possible. We obviously are kicking their ass, but what they can do is make a war of attrition so painful for us that we just can't tolerate it any longer. And
they can't win it in the air. We can't win it on the ground.
We can target their infrastructure. They can target the water and oil infrastructure in the Gulf states, and that is a crisis. We can't repair this infrastructure so quickly that it just sort of all magically comes back and everything's fine.
Qatar has announced in the next 15 days they'll shut down production.
Yeah, I saw this.
Welcome to $150 a barrel.
What was it 550 million barrels of oil fewer coming out of the.
And remember, Qatar is also going to shut off the natural gas production.
Right.
And that's their big juice.
I foresee the scenario in which China, Japan, and India all say to Trump, you have to stop it right now, or we're going to have to do something. Because those countries are incredibly dependent on oil coming out of the Straits of Hormuz.
So your grandfather taught me years ago to watch one indicator in the markets, and that's the VIX, the volatility index.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up 9.35% today. And that is a very bad sign for markets.
I wonder when the markets, the American stock market, will actually start to react to this.
We've been in such a fantasy bubble for so long in this market.
Yeah, they brushed off a million different things, and there's got to be a breaking point.
So I think what you'll see happen is in the short term, the market's going to convince itself with an energy spike, the Fed will have to cut rates to offset the energy the inflationary. Not the inflation, but the financial damage of the war. The Fed will have to cut. That's what the market's going to convince itself of. I don't believe that.
No, I don't buy that either. Ooh, I mean, we'll see how long this goes on. I could see 100 or 200 days of war with Iran, and Iran decides when it's over in many ways now because they can keep shooting missiles and drones. I mean, the critique of Iran is real. You know, the fact that they're bombing every other country in the Middle East is awful, and they it's
awful, but it's strategically very smart.
It's what they. I mean, if I was at the helm, I'd probably do the same. We war gamed this out a few years ago.
Yep.
And Iran can win a war of attrition. They can't win an air war. They can't win. I mean, a ground war maybe, but I think invading Iran with ground troops would be so insane.
The folks, just remember this: during the Iran-Iraq War, there were times when Iran would send human waves of untrained young Iraqi soldiers with sticks, not even with rifles, with sticks. Up to 200,000 young men would charge into the Iranians would charge into the Iraqis. And that is an example of they make the Afghans look peaceful. They make the Pashtuns look like men of quiet repose and dignity. It will go. And by the way, if Trump does order a ground invasion of Iran by any circumstances,
there's going to be a rebellion.
I think this country would be on fire, and I think you would have AOC linking arms with
Thomas Massey
and Rand Paul. this would be left and right would come together to burn this place to the freaking ground.
We'll see.
Well, then again, it could be the rapture because Mike Johnson has sent over the red heifers to Israel so we can usher in the end times.
Great. Woo! We're all happy about the end times.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Well, let me see here. Hold on. Let me go back over to the director chat so I can get direction. Oh, let's talk about Texas real quick, Andrew.
Sure. Let's do it.
Holy crap, the Hispanic turnout.
Yeah, this is really Tallarico's strong point. He did great with Hispanic voters.
Yep.
So this is Starr County. This is a border county, sort of in the very southern part of Texas, right on the border. So this is a Trump county. He won by nearly 58%. And
damn,
I mean, huge numbers of people pulled the Democratic ballot and not the Republican ballot. That is just wild. And so this is Emerson right before the election, pretty much got the numbers just right. I think Crockett was
right on the money. Yep.
Crockett was 1 point lower. There was another poll that we were all seeing that was the University of Texas Tribune poll, which was way off.
You were skeptical about that. The day I talked to you about it, you were like, nah.
No, the sample size was way too small. I think for a number of reasons, it was not a good survey. I think Tallarico, he made an argument to disaffected Trump voters that worked, that, played well in Texas. And, the Tallarico strategy doesn't work everywhere, just like the Mamdani strategy doesn't work everywhere.
Correct.
But he, made the right tactical choices as far as his messaging and succeeded. Now, we don't have a lot of polling on a general election matchup with either Paxton or Cornyn. What we do know is that Cornyn is probably favored by a point or two. But that being said, a point or two for somebody like Tallarico, who's already proven himself to be a good campaigner, to be a strong on his messaging and consistent with his messaging, and a digital native, which is a huge advantage in this environment.
Huge.
I think 1 or 2 points is something he can. These are not insurmountable odds for a candidate like Tallarico.
And I think we saw that Democratic turnout in early voting, folks, is a good. That was a very strong piece of good news.
Yeah.
For the fall. And we've got 90 days now where Paxton and Cornyn are going to nuke the shit out of one another.
Yeah.
And whoever emerges from that GOP primary, I think is going to be pretty radioactive.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping for Paxton in some ways, but that would be very scary to have Paxton potentially.
Paxton might juice the Republican base.
But then again, Trump has chosen not to endorse Paxton.
Trump cucked out, and he's followed the lead of Susie Wiles and all the swamp advisors in D.C., and he's backing never Trump Republican John Cornyn, as I like to say on Twitter.
How about that?
I'm trolling.
Trump's terrified that he's going to get impeached again. He's absolutely terrified.
Oh yeah,
that he's going
as
to
he
get
should be
again, and he has to play nice with Republicans now because they've.
Look what I did for you, John. Look what I helped you so much. Without me, you would not have won.
Yeah. Somebody saying Crockett would be great for AG. I would love to see Crockett in the future as part of the Democratic, cabinet. I think she's a
great communicator.
She is an excellent communicator. I think the problem for her in this primary was that she didn't make a play for disaffected Trump voters, and that in Texas is extremely important.
And folks, you got to, this is a subject for a longer show, but in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, the Hispanic voters that went for Trump in 24 have flipped back to the Democrats in 26.
And flipped, more than flipped.
More than right. Yeah, more than
it was a wave towards Tallarico. He overperformed with Hispanics in a way that pushed him over the line in many ways. And Crockett appealed to the base. Democratic Party voters do like Crockett, but it just didn't. It wasn't enough.
Isn't it also, Andrew? Can't it also be said that Tallarico's fluency about his faith helps with those Hispanic voters in the Rio Grande Valley more than almost any other issue?
I think that's absolutely right, and that's what I'm saying. The Tallarico model works in Texas.
Right.
And yeah, I think it'll work. I think it'll work generally across the South. I think the Democratic preacher method is a good. That's a good. If you're going to follow that path, I think it's a good.
It kind of denatures a lot of their attacks.
It does, and sure, it doesn't apply to every candidate across the country, but it worked for him in a way with these voters in particular because they are more religiously conservative, more socially conservative.
Sure.
But if you're talking to them in the language of faith, they will understand that and process it better than the sort of culture war, rile up the base sort of thing that Crockett did. I just think it was his messaging was on point and excellent and very, very, very consistent. And that, it was a winning strategy.
I think it was. And I think the lesson there, a lot of Democrats are uncomfortable talking about faith.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of their own voters, African Americans and Hispanics, who are comfortable talking about faith.
Who hold faith as one of the pillars of their life.
Yeah.
And you look at Raphael Warnock. I mean, he does
overperforms.
He overperforms with a lot of these more socially conservative, religious Black voters because he talks to them in the language that they understand.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we have run out the clock today. This is a good show today, guys. Thank you, Andrew, as always. Folks, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you watching. And again, this show keeps getting bigger. We're like kind of freaked out about it a little bit. It's kind of cool. And at some point, we may even bring guest pollsters on to talk with us because, why not?
Why not?
We need a show about polling.
We do.
We do.
Everyone does.
Everyone does. Everyone needs a show about polling. My God.
I think some people dismiss polling as sort of just like numbers that only the insider crowd looks at, but it is really important because you have to remember that the president is looking at these numbers. He's very
yes, he is.
Stuff. And it's the national pulse, even if it's sometimes a little off.
Before we go, one last point. The president is moved by 2 or 3 things in his life. TV coverage by real traditional media and TV and print coverage by real traditional media. By the way, Trump secretly hates Fox. He hates it. It's the ghetto in his mind. Okay. He wants the New York Times to love him and to respect him. That's one thing that moves his and a lot of Republicans who hate the mainstream media want the mainstream media to love them.
Right.
The second thing that moves him is the markets. When the markets go south, Trump gets very, very nervous because he recognizes that high gas prices and lower stock market destroy his narrative of economic prosperity.
Yep.
And the final thing that moves Trump is whether or not he is the GOAT or the hero in the story. That's why he fired Noam. Okay. She embarrassed him.
Oh, we didn't talk about Noam today. I think that's just what a terrible oversight.
I know,
so
right?
So sad to see her go.
So sad. R.I.P. Christie.
It's really terrible.
Cricket up in heaven. Don't shoot your dog, Christie. That's a bad play. I got to say, I don't know if you saw Tillis the other day, and you, Andrew. And,
oh yeah,
Andrew, grew up with us with our bird dogs, and Tom Tillis went at her because he's an experienced bird hunter. He's a pheasant hunter. And he went at her like, you don't take a goddamn puppy into a field stocked with pheasant, and just like took her to school. I was like, yeah. Anyway, folks, thank you for tuning in. As always, we will be back again next Friday with more optimistic news from the world burning around us. You can catch us on Substack. I am at Against All Enemies. Andrew writes at Lincoln Square and at Andrew Wilson. You can catch me on Mondays on Fast Politics with Molly Junk Fast. You can catch me on Tuesdays at the strategy session here on Lincoln Square. You can catch me on Thursdays on the breakdown. You can catch me here and Andrew every Friday on Behind the Numbers. And you can catch me on Substack at Against All Enemies, just for the day-to-day writing and pictures of the cats. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Do me a big favor before you go. If you're watching us on YouTube, please do the like, subscribe, hit that bell. We are all slaves to the algorithm, and we must obey it at all times. Anyway, thanks, folks. We'll talk to you again next week.